Have you ever noticed that the kinder you are, the more exhausted you become? You answer the calls, you do the favors. You don't want to let anyone down, but instead of feeling appreciated, you feel drained, and somehow people keep expecting more from you. So, here's a question that could completely change the way you see your relationships. What if you're not being used because you're kind, but because you've accidentally taught people that your time and energy are always available? By the end of this video, you'll recognize 4 signs that reveal when kindness has quietly turned into people-pleasing. And the last sign is one many people don't recognize until it has already affected some of their relationships. Kindness is one of the best qualities a person can have. Stoicism never argues against that. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on justice, cooperation, and treating others well. But the Stoics also believed kindness should be guided by wisdom, because without healthy boundaries, even the most generous person can slowly lose themselves. Modern psychology points in the same direction. Strong relationships aren't built on endless sacrifice. They grow through compassion, mutual respect, and healthy boundaries. Let's start with the first sign. 1. You can't say no, even when you want to. Picture this. You've had a long day, you're tired, your own work isn't finished yet. Then someone asks for one more favor. Your first thought is, I really can't. But somehow, you hear yourself saying, sure. If that feels familiar, it may not be kindness alone. Sometimes it's the discomfort of disappointing someone. Psychologists have found that many people struggle to say no because they fear rejection, conflict, or letting others down. In moments like these, the goal isn't only to help, it's also to avoid uncomfortable feelings. Epictetus taught that our choices belong to us, while other people's opinions do not. But when we let someone else's expectations make our decision for us, we give away some of that control. Think about the co-worker who's always willing to stay late. At first, everyone appreciates it. Then something changes. People stop asking if they're available. They simply expect them to be. That's how a favor quietly becomes an expectation. Being dependable is a strength. Feeling like you can't say no is the warning sign. The next time someone asks for your time, don't rush your answer. Pause. Even a few seconds can remind you that helping should be a choice, not an automatic habit. But saying yes isn't always where the real problem begins. Sometimes the hardest part comes after you finally say no. 2. You feel guilty whenever you put yourself first. Have you ever turned down a request and then spent the rest of the day wondering if you made the wrong decision? Nobody argued with you. Nobody got upset. But the guilt wouldn't leave. A lot of people assume guilt means they've done something wrong. But that's not always true. Sometimes guilt is simply a learned response. Research on self-compassion suggests that people who practice it are often better able to maintain healthy boundaries while still caring deeply about others. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to act according to reason instead of chasing other people's approval. Those are 2 very different ways to live. Imagine a parent who never takes time to rest because caring for themselves feels selfish. At first, it looks admirable, but little by little, exhaustion replaces patience. Resentment quietly replaces joy. It's like trying to pour water from an empty cup. Eventually, there's nothing left to give. Healthy boundaries don't make someone selfish. They protect the energy needed to keep showing up for the people who matter. The next time guilt shows up, ask yourself one simple question. Am I actually doing something wrong, or am I just uncomfortable disappointing someone? That single question can completely change your perspective. And once you stop feeling guilty for protecting your own time, you start noticing something else. Not every relationship is as balanced as you thought. 3. Your relationships feel one-sided. Think about the people who contact you the most. If they didn't need anything, would they still reach out? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's an honest one. Healthy relationships involve give and take. No relationship is perfectly balanced every day, but over time, both people should contribute in meaningful ways. Imagine carrying a backpack with someone else. If you're the only one carrying the weight, the bag doesn't suddenly become heavier. You just become more tired with every step. One-sided relationships work the same way. When one person is always giving, while the other is always receiving, appreciation can slowly turn into expectation. Social psychologists describe this through the norm of reciprocity. Research suggests relationships are generally healthier when both people feel the exchange is fair. Seneca also emphasized that generosity should be guided by wisdom. He reminded us that our time is one of life's most valuable resources. Imagine a friend who only messages when they need a favor. The first few times, you don't think much of it. Months later, you realize almost every conversation starts the same way, with a request. That realization stings, not because you helped, but because the relationship quietly became one-sided. Instead of judging one moment, pay attention to patterns. One favor doesn't define a relationship, but repeated imbalance often tells the real story. And there's one final habit that quietly allows those patterns to continue. 4. You avoid conflict at any cost. This might be the most important sign of all. Many people believe avoiding conflict keeps relationships peaceful. In reality, it often allows unhealthy patterns to continue. Every time you stay silent about something that genuinely matters to you, you make it harder for the other person to understand where your boundaries are. You avoid one uncomfortable conversation today, but you may create months of silent frustration tomorrow. Research on assertive communication consistently shows that respectful, honest communication supports healthier relationships than constant avoidance. The key word is respectful. Assertiveness isn't aggression, it's clarity. The Stoics viewed courage as something we practice in everyday life, not only during life's biggest moments. Sometimes courage looks like one calm, honest conversation. Imagine someone repeatedly asking for your time, your energy, or your attention, without realizing how overwhelmed you feel. If you never tell them, they may honestly believe everything is fine. Silence often allows the problem to continue. Not because people are always trying to take advantage of you, but because they don't always know where your limits are. And that brings us back to where we started. Were people using you because you're kind? Sometimes. But many situations develop because healthy boundaries were never clearly communicated. Kindness isn't the problem. Living with a persistent fear of disappointing people often contributes to the problem. The goal isn't to become less kind, it's to become kind and clear. One of the biggest lessons we can take from Stoicism is this: a meaningful life is guided by your values, not by the constant need for other people's approval. So the next time someone asks something of you, take a moment before you answer. Then ask yourself, am I saying yes because I truly want to, or because I'm afraid to say no? That one question won't change every relationship overnight, but it can change the way you protect your time, your peace, and your self-respect. If one of these 4 signs felt familiar, tell me in the comments which one hit home the most. And if you enjoy videos about Stoicism, psychology, and building real confidence, subscribe and check out the next video. It continues this conversation and shows you how to build healthy boundaries without losing your kindness.